Guys, we have a great treat today. We have the legend, Coach Sonny Smith, on the podcast. We can't believe it. He's a huge legend to us and every Auburn basketball fan. Matt, you excited?
Man, I'm excited, a little nervous, just thrilled that we're going to have him on. Can't wait to kind of pick his brain on this year's team, as well as some things from his coaching career at Auburn and, his unique spot doing color commentary on the Auburn network as well.
Yeah, we put our suits on. If you're on YouTube, you can see pretty button that top button, but we're trying to look professional for our, the biggest guy we ever had on the podcast.
Every Auburn fan should have a navy blazer, right? A navy jacket.
And an orange tie.
Yeah, that's
it used to be that orange and blue striped one. I need to go get another one, but that was the go-to, in high school and college and stuff.
Yeah.
But we're excited, and we kind of want to do a little intro before he comes on to talk about some of his accomplishments. And so, anyways, here's some of them. I wrote them all down over here. Smoky Mountain Conference all-conference team when he was in high school, junior college state championship as a player, the first person to take Auburn to an NCAA tournament. Before he got to Auburn, we'd never been to the NCAA tournament. I'm not sure what year the NCAA tournament actually started, but he was the first one to take us there. We've had few and far between. He had the first person to have 3 consecutive 20-win seasons. Bruce has now done it. But before that, man, there was a big gap. 3 years in a row, he got 21 seasons, and no one after that for 20-plus years got that. He took Auburn to its first 5 NCAA tournaments in history, all in a row, including an Elite 8 and 2 Sweet 16s. That's huge. We've talked about how hard it is to take a team several times in a row. He did it 5 years in a row before leaving. He took Auburn to the first ever SEC tournament championship in 1985. That was huge. We'll talk about that some of the podcasts with him. You'll have to go back and watch some of the videos. They're on YouTube. I'll probably post some stuff on Instagram about it. He brought the Charles Barkley to Auburn University, which has been paying dividends for 40 plus years at this point. We all know how big of a representative Charles Barkley has been over the years. Just imagine Auburn basketball history without Charles Barkley. It's completely different. He puts Auburn on the map. Even in so many years that we've been down, Charles Barkley talking about Auburn has been huge. He's a multiplier for us all the time. Anytime something good happens for Auburn and Charles Barkley can speak about it, he multiplies it by 1,000. So huge that Sonny Smith brought him on, and huge that he had a coach like Sonny Smith that got him so involved at Auburn and loving Auburn. He had 3 lottery picks in consecutive years, kind of like Bruce is looking to do right now. He had Charles Barkley at the number 5 pick in 1984, Chuck Purses as the number 4 pick in 1985, and Chris Moore as the number 4 pick in 1986. 3 top 5 picks in a row for Sonny Smith at Auburn. Can you imagine? I mean, we talked about before Bruce Pearl how crazy that is. Well, Sonny Smith did it. We weren't alive for it, but he did it. Coach of the year in 4 different conferences. He had a great radio show with Whip Sanders back in the day, the old Alabama coach. It was the highest rated radio show back in the day. Radio shows, for those that don't know, are like podcasts, but over waves. You could listen to them in your car. Old school. Sonny Smith, he's an old school guy. Mississippi Junior College Hall of Fame, Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. This dude is accomplished. He's big in college sports and college basketball. He's super well respected in the college community. We love him as the radio guy. It's kind of crazy that him and Charles Barkley have had similar, to different magnitudes kind of thing, where he's almost bigger now in the Auburn perspective from how great his radio calls are. And so is Charles Barkley for how great his commentating are. And I think it's so great that he was the coach for him. And I wonder how much that rubbed off, but that's his accomplishments. It's crazy. We're looking so forward to interviewing him. All right. We got Coach Sonny Smith on. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you, fellas.
I think Matt's going to hit him with some questions here.
Yeah, so we wanted to start with this year's team. There's so much excitement around this group and the high ceiling they have. You've had kind of a front row seat to see them. Are there a couple things that you think are keys to them reaching the high potential that they have? What are you watching for game in and game out?
I think consistency at the guard position. If they get that, I think they're a team that could go a long way in the tournament. And you got to avoid injury, but I think if you had to say nobody injured, I think consistency at guard play would be the difference between going maybe to the Final Four or, going deep in the tournament. Because we have a solid team, quickness, strength, height, we've got a total package in that area, but got to avoid injury and got to get better guard play to beat the best teams.
We wanted to ask you about Bruce Pearl too. I saw there was some kind of a little bit of a connection between your coaching tenure and his coaching tenure. It was a 25-year gap between 1960 and 1985 when you won the SEC tournament. There was a big gap from 1999 to 2018 when Bruce Pearl won his championship, which is I think like 19 years. Like, how is it, comparing you two together almost, how is it to come into a program that was down for so long and try to start from scratch? How do you do that?
I think what changed everything was everybody to compete in the Southeastern Conference had to have better arenas. And I think everybody started building big arenas and new arenas. And like Auburn's not a big arena, but what they did is they kind of took a look at Duke, at the small number and filled every night type thing, and it fit them perfectly. So I think the biggest change in basketball since I was coaching to now has been the arenas more than anything else. I think if you got a choice between going to a bad arena and a good arena, if everything else is equal, you're going to go to the good one or the beautiful one or the more modern, I think. And that's, you still got to win no matter where you're playing.
It's an interesting kind of words there on. I was going to ask you on my next question. You've been coaching since the 70s, and there's been so much change in college basketball. There's the 3-point line, tons of money have come in, TV broadcasts, marketing deals, shoe deals, apparel deals. One of the biggest ones recently, NIL stuff, one-time transfers. You had a unique situation where Charles Barkley, I was reading an article that Charles Barkley thought about transferring to Alabama at one point, and you had a 3-hour conversation with him. Like, what did you say, and what would you tell current coaches about this transfer situation?
Well, I've talked to a lot about this. I've said to a number of people, I didn't know how to coach superstars, and he was a superstar, yet I did not know that exactly, but I knew he was special. And I treated him like I would any other player, and that didn't fit him. And I should have been smart enough to recognize that, I think, because right now, you think about in the pros and the better college teams, the star is treated a little bit different. He is handled, if that's not a good word for people, but they put in more different things for those type of people. Well, I treated Charles like I would somebody who was on the bench. I did that with all of them. And if I had it to do over, we would have been more successful with Charles had I been able to recognize that you treat superstars different. I didn't treat him any different than I did Gerald White, the point guard, who didn't score, but he gave up. I'll give you a good example. He gave up being the #1 scorer in the state of Georgia to come to Auburn and be a point guard and average 9 points a game so the other people could get the ball. Well, the thing about him, he needed to be treated different. And I've talked to him about it. He says no now. He said it was the best thing for him. But it wasn't the best thing for winning, though, I didn't think. I thought we would have won more if I hadn't been so hair trigger on him, getting ready to shoot him every day.
You were talking about superstars with a transfer there. Last year, we lost Turbo Jones, I believe, early in the year. A lot of this now is actually these developmental players that you kind of think, okay, these guys, you would in the past stick around for 3 or 4 years, and you're hoping by year 3 and 4, they're great. But they're all leaving in year 1 and year 2. How do you manage that? What would you tell like a current coach of how to manage a player that can just leave at any moment now?
I think keep recruiting the way that they are. Take the player that's transferring, live off the transfer because you know what's coming. You know they're going to be done in 2, or they're going to leave quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think that what these guys are doing today is the way to go. Bring these guys in. If you're only going to have them for 1 or 2 years, take them. And the reason for that is experience. When everything's equal, experience will overcome youth. Will probably win in most. They'll win more games for you. And I don't think that I don't think leaving early today is as hard on a team as it used to be, because it's just a part of the thing. I tried to get involved in that type of thing with junior college players. Only got you for 2, you can't leave. You be out in 2. So I got to keep those guys for 2. But a lot of people say, well, you were wrong. You should have been bringing guys in for 4 years. Well, if I went to 4-year level at that point, Kentucky's going to beat me because they'll get better 4-year players. Tennessee's going to beat me. LSU's going to beat me. Florida's going to beat me. So I figure if I can get a guy that's better than those guys and I'm only going to have him 2 years, I can take a better chance on that. But this is what's happened right now. Is the reason I'm explaining. It's already here.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? The way I was trying to do it back then, I was playing from behind, so to speak. And I don't think you have to anymore because everybody doing the same thing. Kentucky's taking the transfers now. That's going to be gone in a year. And normally it would be a guy that was a pro and they knew they wouldn't have him. But now, guys coming in 2 years, maybe guys, they may never play pro ball, but they'll help you win games.
Well, Jackson was talking about how the game has changed so much, and it really has. Three-point shot is obviously huge, but just the way I thought that Auburn LSU game was just so physical and so up and down. Is there a player that you coached at Auburn that you think would have just thrived now with all the changes and different way the game is played?
If he'd have stayed healthy, Jeff Moore would have been that way. Jeff Moore scored over 25 points 4 games in a row. Well, he broke his hand at Vanderbilt, at Georgia Tech, and he was never the player that he was again. But he would have been a guy who would thrived in this type of situation because he was a post guy that could go away from the basket and make threes. Now you got to be, if you're going to play in the post today, you got to be a guy that steps away, unless you're over 7, and then you don't have to do that. But a guy over 7 foot can come away from the basket, fellas, and become a better passer than a guy 6'4", because they can't defend it, can't defend the pass. That's why I think Walker Kessler, who plays for Auburn, can be so tremendously because he's so unselfish. He can step away from the basket and become a passer that's going to make Auburn a lot better team. And if he becomes a scoring passer, he's really going to be special.
I think we've seen that passing element from the taller players. We seem to have an issue
Sure.
with guards getting the ball into Walker Kessler at times because they're too short. But we see Jabari at 6'9" be able to feed the ball into Kessler and vice versa because their size is so much larger.
Sure. I think a big guy that can pass the basketball is so much needed in college basketball. Now, pro ball, if you're real big, they would prefer you to think score first, pass second, if you're big. But if you look at even pro ball, some of the best players in the NBA are passers out of the post. They put I was thinking the other day, LeBron James. LeBron James has become like a 6'4" postman now, or a 6'5" postman. He goes in, post up, he scores on you or throws it out for a wide open shot. And he played the other way. But, the game has changed. 3-point line changed everything. And if you can get a big guy that can step away and shoot, you really want him. If he can step away, shoot, and pass, you really, really want him. And I think Walker Kessler might be a guy that can be that way for Auburn.
Well, when you got a 6'9" guy like Jabari Smith shooting 40+% from 3, that's pretty helpful, right?
Boy, is he good. He has a basket. You think about it. You've heard this statement before. Well, he's got a basketball body. Well, he has the basketball body, able to play outside with a body that has the quickness and the strength, and also the fact that he can go down and post up and be special there also. He's if I were a pro scout, he would be a guy I would be looking at as a lottery guy because he can do so many things and he's so young. He's a lottery type guy. Now, whether the way we play would be not fit that, but I don't know. But I think to me, he's a lottery type pick.
He seems to play so well with everybody else. And for somebody who is that highly recruited to come in and really blend with all these new players really well this year so far, he's just really impressed me with how he's handled the spotlight that's on him being the highest rated, recruit Auburn's ever signed, whatever that's good for. Just the way he plays is really impressive to me with all his talent.
Well, he's not selfish at all.
Yep.
And he looks for the more open shots. He can make any shot. And the thing that impresses me is he handles the ball like a point guard.
Yeah.
If you ever notice, if we get in trouble, look who brings the ball up. He does. And he's just special. I don't know how the pro guys would rate him as a defender right now, because I think he realizes that he's got to stay in a game. And the harder you play defense, the less time you generally play, because foul trouble gets you. And does he play good defense? Yes, but he doesn't play physical defense. And I think he realizes he's got to stay in a game. That's why I like it that way.
I did a lot of research coming into this. So it was really interesting to read a lot of your life story stuff, a lot of your coaching. There was an interesting through line I kind of saw, that you were constantly recruited as a coach. A lot of times, recruiting is the lifeblood of college sports, but I noticed throughout your career, you turned down the Auburn job the first time. They had to talk you into it the second time. I heard the AD at East Tennessee State talked you into it. Then when you were at Auburn in 1982, you thought about leaving, and the AD talked you back into staying. And then famously, you said you were going to retire before the SEC tournament that you won in 1985 and went deep into the tournament. I think it was Chuck Person and AD talked you into staying again.
Yes.
And then you left for VCU. At the time, people were like, oh man, why did he leave? You wanted him to stay. And then even at VCU, your final year, when you wanted to retire, they said, please stay another year.
Yes.
How does it feel? Like, what does it say about you as a coach that everybody's always trying to recruit you back onto their team?
Well, I had the feeling, let's take the VCU situation. I had the feeling that I was getting that burnt out feeling, or burned out, whichever is English. I failed that in 3 states. The burnout type of thing wanted me to get out. I wanted to get away. I wanted to leave the game and not let it take me down, instead of, you taking it down, so to speak. And that was what I was dealing with at VCU. What I was dealing with here was a totally different thing. I loved Auburn. I needed to be at Auburn. I was an Auburn type person, I think. I hope people think that too. But the NCAA was coming in. They were coming in, and I thought, here they're coming. Now, who's going to really support me when the NCAA gets here? They're going to support the football program. And I said, I got to get out of here before they get me. Well, they got the football program, and they didn't touch the basketball program. So I was totally wrong on that. So I left Auburn for all the wrong reasons. I didn't even go to VCU with the intention of taking a job. I was doing like some guys do now, run the price up. You know what I mean? When I'm saying that, when I say that, and I was hoping to get Auburn to say, well, we'll pay you more, that type of thing. But then I get to VCU, and I take an agent with me. And this agent goes in the room with the VCU people, the AD and the president. He comes out. I don't even go in the room. He grabs my hand. He says, you're the new coach at VCU. He robbed them. He absolutely robbed VCU. So I didn't have any choice. I'll give you a good example. As a coach, you generally get one car. You get a car given to you by a dealership. VCU gave me 2 Cadillacs, one for Jan and one for me. Now, these are not, you give them back after mileage. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the way coaches get their free cars. Well, that jumped out at me really quick. I thought, well, he's already robbed these people. I might as well take it. And I took the job because of that. The money was so much different. I'd never made any money in my life. And these people were willing to pay it. And we didn't even have an arena at VCU. We had everything at Auburn that VCU didn't have. They didn't have an arena to play in. They were going into a new league where everybody in it might be a little bit more equipped with money. But when that price came up there, wasn't any way I could turn it down.
Well, that's a shame to hear that Auburn got outbid here by VCU. You hope.
Well, at that time, it's easy to outbid Auburn. Pat Dye was the AD. Football was taken care of a little bit better than basketball was. But if I had to say, did he treat me well? Yes, he did. Pat Dye.
There was a time, I think in the 1982 one, maybe, that someone said the football team, the high fivers, the football intramural team, the women's basketball team, and then the men's basketball team. That was like the ranking in popularity. And I think at the time when you thought about leaving in 1982, there were some quotes out there that you weren't sure Auburn basketball could happen, that it could happen at Auburn. Do you think now under Bruce, if VCU comes calling for Bruce, that we're going to step up and pay the right price? Do you think basketball is here to stay now?
I don't think another school could outbid Auburn to keep him. Bruce Pearl is perfect fit for Auburn. He's the kind of guy that Auburn people can look to, can talk to, and he will participate in anything in the communities. He'll go out, do what he has to do. Plus, if they judge basketball coaches on winning, I guess. But if you ever go to one of his practices, you'll see how good he is, a practice coach he is, how good a game coach he is, how good a recruiter he is, and how the people look to him in the community. He's a total package, in my opinion. And, I don't even see faults in the way he does things. All you got to do is go to one of his practices to see how good he is.
And do you go to practices a lot these days?
Yes, I do. I still do. I try to make sure I go to 2 a week at least, sometimes more. I let tennis get in the way. Going 3 times, and I can't play dead in a cowboy show as far as tennis is concerned, but I love to play.
Yeah, I read somewhere, you had some arthritis, different things at the end of VCU that were hampering your tennis game. It's good to hear that, I think you're in your 80s now, right? You're still playing tennis out there?
Yeah, I still play. Can't play dead in the cowboy show, as they say, but I still play.
But I
need an outlet like that. Jan and I are both have reached the age that we can't travel a lot. So as long as I can get on a plane and fly the game, it doesn't bother me to do the game.
I have a new goal now. I do some tennis lessons for younger kids, and I coach a high school team here. And I love tennis. I'm in my 30s, but I look forward to hopefully being able to play for as long as I can. So 85 is my new goal now. So thanks for that.
I like that. Let me tell you the difference for me. Did you ever notice that every coach plays golf?
Mm-hmm. That's what I was curious.
I was a job scared guy. When I was coaching, having not been in it a long time, I was afraid if somebody saw me out playing golf, they'd think I wasn't working. Mm-hmm. That was a totally wrong attitude to look at it, because you go out and play golf with a guy and he becomes a supporter of your program, that type of thing. But I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it like, I want everybody to know that I'm really working, which I was. And, but that is not a way to look at it. That's a little bit of a lack of confidence is what it is. You need more confidence in what you're doing.
Well, I had a question for you here. Now that the NCAA and FBI investigation and everything is kind of all wrapped up, me and Matt were talking about this. We didn't get to see Chuck Persons play. For our perspective, we didn't get to see that kind of half of his reputation at Auburn. For people like, and I saw somewhere too that you were the best man in Chuck Persons' wedding. And I just want to give you an opportunity to maybe tell the younger audience what you think they should know about Chuck Persons as a whole, now that we've kind of wrapped everything up.
Chuck Person had great talent. He was going to go to Tennessee. He was not coming to Auburn. I'm going to tell that story. He wanted to go to a better basketball program. Tennessee was a little better at the time. His mother, Chuck's mother, was a football fan. She didn't even go to Chuck's basketball games, but she loved football. So I took Pat Dye to visit Chuck Person, and Chuck Person's mother, he signed the next day. He was going to Tennessee. So that was the first thought. His first thought was that basketball at Auburn wasn't good as it should be. And he didn't want to go to Alabama because his high school coach was an Auburn guy. And he was knocking down Alabama every time he got a chance. But he might not like me saying that, but he was for Auburn. And that was helping me there. But Chuck would have gone to Tennessee if Pat Dye had not gone to his home, because his mother immediately, she was football all the way. And then Chuck was very, very successful here, a good team player, big time, taking big shots. He was great at that. You couldn't foul him. He'd make the free throw. He would guard his man really good. I thought there's no question he'd be a pro. The question was how long you can be able to keep him. And that back in those days, you could at least keep them to their junior year. You know, you might lose them after that. But he was everything that you need in a college player. Chuck Person hurt himself, and he made a lot of money in pro ball. Chuck Person was a giver. He wasn't a taker. He was a guy that built homes for relatives. He's a guy that gave cars to closest family members. And all of those things got him in trouble here at Auburn. And he really, if you know Chuck Person as a person, he is really a tremendous individual as far as his association with the people. And I just hate that he went from being a star in the making as far as a head coach. It went the other direction because of the problem we had here with that. But he hasn't lost any feeling that I have for him. I'll tell you that.
That's cool. You have any follow-up, Jackson?
Yeah. Do you
I'm
see
sorry.
like what do you think as a whole Auburn people should take for? Do you think will he be welcomed back one day? Do you think he should be? Like, what do you think the whole narrative?
That's a great question. I don't know how to answer that one. I would say a few years down the road, a couple of years down the road more, yeah. Right now, the first thing would come up is what Chuck did with those two players and the family. That would be the first thing that would come up. But Chuck Person loved Auburn. He'd love to be here, I believe. He hasn't said that to me, but I know him. But I don't think he'll be coming back here anytime soon. He has a tremendous business right now. He's in Atlanta, and he takes kids of any age and pros and brings them in and does individual teaching. And he's got a full day every day, and that's really kept him close to basketball. And pretty soon he'll be eligible for the NBA pension plan. He's already eligible, probably. And so he'll have money coming in all directions. So I don't think he may need coaching, but coaching doesn't need him right now.
That's good to hear. You know, I've always heard how good of a person he is, not to use a pun of his last name, but just he's a good guy.
He was.
Things happen. And I do think with the way the NCAA kind of came down on Auburn's side with all the self-imposed penalties, there's not any lingering effect now. Everybody can kind of move on. I kind of agree with you. I think in a few years, maybe that door can be open, because he really did give so much to the university.
Well, he did in a lot of ways. And he lost it all still trying to help two Auburn players.
Yeah.
You know, if you remember that. And he didn't, you know, it wasn't like he didn't want to do it right. He didn't actually know the rules the way he should have. He had just got into college coaching. And well, I tell you, one of the first things you need to do right now in today's game is know the rules, the recruiting rules and standards. And he didn't know exactly. He didn't know exactly how dangerous field he was fooling around in.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people our age know you as this awesome color commentator on the radio, where there's text messages among a lot of my friends that they get so mad at the national broadcast team that'll cover the game on SEC Network or ESPN or whatever, and they just wish there's a way we could, you know, watch it and time it up with the radio broadcast. But I'm just curious, as you know, I think we read that you thought about being a musician and entertainer when you were a kid.
Yeah, I did.
Has this been a run where you've gotten to just be in a place you love and get to talk about the game that you love? How has it been working with Rod and Andy over the years in this role?
That's an interesting question. The first thing is I did it to stay close to the game. I did it to get a front row seat, but I didn't think of it as an occupation because I was a retirement mode or mood, whichever is in English. And it came up and I really enjoyed it. And the thing that made it easier for me was the people that I worked for just let me talk. They didn't say, well, you shouldn't say this, you shouldn't say that. And I think if it had been a lot of that, I just talk. And sometimes the things I say, Sherry, my daughter, or some of my friends will say, well, did you know you said that? And I said, well, no, I was just talking. And to be totally honest, I am just really talking. And I like it. I like staying close to the game. When you're 85, you can drift away real quick, and I want to stay close.
That's
we
great.
We love the unfiltered nature of it. That's part of the fun. Is it really feels like your emotions are behind it. It's the same kind of emotions we're feeling, but you get to do those emotions, but with a brain that's coached college basketball for, and you kind of give it some of our emotions. You give it almost a little more weight to it. It's like, well, if Sonny Smith agrees with me, then we're good. We're that's the right opinion. If Sonny's saying it too. So.
Well, let me tell you about that. When I first started doing this, Rod Bramlett was a great example. Rod Bramlett would keep his finger near the button that cuts you off. There's a delay. I don't know if it's a 2 second or 1 second or some kind of delay. And Rod was afraid of what I might say. And I wasn't even thinking about what I might say. That's why he was afraid. And so I just kept talking, and finally they took their hand off the button and let me go, I guess. Sometimes I go home and Sherry or somebody will tell me what I said. Well, I don't remember saying that. I just let it flow. But seemed to me, I haven't received a lot of criticism over that. Normally you would. If you were doing it wrong, you would get a lot of criticism. And I don't see how people that do radio, television, or shows like you're doing here can stay away from criticism. It's just a part of it. But funny thing, I hadn't got that. I don't know why, but
I think you have the respect of being there and been there, done that. And I think honestly, the connection to the Auburn community is so important. There's so many people who longed for the consistency that you built in the 80s for all these years, and for you to be able to be a part of some lean years there before Bruce arrived, but then to kind of be on this journey the last few years. I think people really respect that and appreciate that, and you get some leeway. And I think it's funny. I used to coach middle school basketball, so not even close to the same level as you. But I remember with middle school kids, you score a basket and you're immediately saying, "Get back, don't foul." You're throwing all that stuff out there. That's my favorite part of your calls is we'll make a great play, and you immediately go to the next possession. You're on top of it.
I had the basketball. The basketball just changed so much, fellas. I'm sure you recognize it. The 3-point shot rules the game. Spacing rules the game. I used to bunch them up. Now you got to spread them out. We would take them in the post, and bunch them up, run inside out, they call it. Now you go outside in. And it's the game is so different. And if somebody asks me, which is the best way? I think the 3-point shot is more spectacular than post play or the dribble. But in the way the game's played today, you bet used to be you look for back to the basket guys and a point guard that didn't shoot and 2 wings that could score if they left them open. You did that. Well, now everybody's got to play 2 or 3 different positions. You know how different it is? You live with the 3 and you take the 2.
Well, what about this? Jackson and I have talked about this. You may be about to ask the same thing, but I'll get it. For you, in your position, what is more devastating to the other team? Is it a Wendell Green logo three, or is it a Devin Cambridge ridiculous alley-oop coming out of nowhere? Because those two plays have been very prevalent this year for this team. Is there one that, if you were opposing Auburn, which one would just be more?
I'll never forget the Devin Cambridge shot. And I probably might forget one of Wendell's shots, from way back beyond midcourt. But if you think about that, he threw the ball off the backboard, run down through big people and dunked, like tore the rim down. I don't think I'll ever forget that shot.
He's a Cambridge man. He's an alley-oop man.
He's an alley-oop boy. I've heard of creating your own shot, but I never heard of it that way. He threw it off the top of the backboard and dunked it.
Well,
go ahead.
One last question I had, and then I'll see if Jackson has anything. But I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I've done some coaching, teaching stuff. When you're in front of people, young people especially, a lot of times there's a phrase or a concept that they just get really tired of you saying. You say it so much, you say it over and over again because you're trying to make it a point of emphasis. From your coaching career, what were a couple things that your players might say now looking back? Yeah, he said that all the time. He focused on that part of the game all the time.
Get back. I always worried about not giving a team the opportunity to play full court and half court. And I realized if you took away the fast break, you're taking away half the game. So my favorite thing was get back. I was always screaming that. I don't even try to think of any of the other things that I might say. But that would be my number one. Get back.
I think get back.
They tell me I sometimes say that on the radio. Do I?
Yes.
I don't really know.
I think it's habit. You're just still in that coaching mode.
I love it. Yeah. I love when there's a big shot at the end of the game and we hit a three or something, and then immediately the first thing we hear after is from Sonny Smith, get back now. We're thinking the same thing. Play defense.
I don't want to make you look bad after you made them look bad. That's true. Get back is a thing for me. Big thing. Now I don't think of it as much. Somebody says I'm squealing, wee-hoo, or something like that. Now I don't even think about that either, to be honest with you.
We love all that. That's the parts we love, man. So
well, it's funny that they've allowed me, and Andy, for instance, has never said, Sonny, you shouldn't do that. Rod never said you shouldn't do that. I did television for years, and not many years, but I did TV for years, but they would tell me no. We had a TV show in Atlanta. So the name of the network was CSS. It's out of business now. I think we put them out. And they would cut down on anything I said. They don't do that. They tell me this and don't do it. But I don't have that anymore. Nobody says you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say. But I hope that it's some form of entertainment. I hope it is, because
you make it worth listening. Honestly, there's a lot of everyone wants the hometown call.
Is it what is he going to say next type of thing, or is it?
That's part of it. You have some great. Really? You have some great sayings that you say. I wish I could write them all down when we listen. The only bad part, for the playoff games recently, ESPN has streaming with the radio calls. We wish we could get that. I don't know if there's licensing issues or what the deal is. I know you can pause your phones a bit.
Well, all I know is how to turn them on and switch to the Western channel. That's about all I can do with the TV. I'm not electronically inclined. Let's put it that way.
Well, we wish we could have you on all day, but I did do a lot of research for this. It's so entertaining to read all these articles, and I did want to pick out an interesting story or two. There was one where there was a plane that caught fire, and you had a player that was concussed, and you had to go in and save the player.
I had a great player transferred from Indiana because he couldn't put up with Bobby Knight. Rich Valavicius was his name, and he was one of the best players in Indiana in high school. But he could not handle the criticism that Bobby Knight had. He gets injured at Ole Miss, and his career's over because it was like his 6th or 7th concussion. So we we flew on three or four planes back then. They hold 8 passengers each. Well, on my plane, we helped put Rich Valvicius on the plane up in the front because there was more, he could almost be lying down. Well, we start down the runway and the plane catches on fire. So I'm sitting back in the rumble seat where you place all the bags and all that, and all these guys are sitting in the seats. I dropped the door down to get off the plane. I said, "Get off the plane fast as you can. Somebody get Val." One of the players run back and said, "You get Val. I'm not getting Val." They're getting out of that fire is what they want. And Val's on the front, almost knocked out. They say, "I can remember today, you get Val. I'm not getting Val."
Did you go back there and carry him back, or?
Well, I had to help him off the plane. He got I think the numbers may vary on this, 7th or 8th concussion. It was over. They told him one more and you never play again. Well, he never played again. And he was like the second leading scorer on the team at that time. Bobby Caddage, a kid lives here in town, was the leading scorer, and he was the second leading scorer. And he was a great player, great to coach. But when the plane caught on fire, I had to help him off with the plane. Players wouldn't. And always said, "You get Val." They said, "No, you get Val." They ran off the plane so fast. Fires will do that thing.
Another interesting one I wanted to ask you about. I read a lot about your family, and your granddad ran a still, and your dad did some bootlegging back in the day. Is you have any stories from the bootlegging days?
It wasn't every once in a while. We did it every day. My grandfather was one of the better bootleggers. It was kind of, this might sound crazy, but it was kind of a social thing. A good bootlegger is well known in the community. You know, he's thought a lot of. It didn't end up that way, but that's the way it was. We sold bootleg liquor until I went away to college. My dad quit after that, and I don't know what made him quit. He was not arrested. He was a deputy sheriff. It's hard to arrest him. And we had all of that going on, and it was there was enough stories that could have made a book really good. Like, for instance, my dad would get drunk on Saturdays. No, never drink any other time. And he'd get drunk about 10 or 11 o'clock. He'd make my mother get her guitar. My mother and I would sing. And we'd sing hymns to him. He's over there drunk, propped up against the wall, drunk. And his favorite hymn was "Where Could I Go But to the Lord." He got religion every Saturday. And it happened right after you drink and those kind of things. But see, I would never put those in a book because I thought it was the people in Roan Mountain would think less of me than what the public would enjoy reading. And I was unwilling to do those things. And it would have made a great book if I'd have done it.
You come off as a very aggressively humble man. You know, some of these things I've read where you've left different places, people beg you to come back, and it seems like you're like, "No, I'm going to move on." The same, you talk about Rowan Mountain a lot. You really like, I've never seen someone rep their small town kind of like that so much and care so much about, you know, you've done so much, you've gone so far, you could write a whole book, but you're still worried about what would the people back home think, you know, like I want to make them proud. I think that's so interesting that it's still this far in.
You know what made me that way is my relatives. When I left, I knew I had to get out of Roan Mountain if I was going to go anywhere, do anything, become something. But all my family stayed there. And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned Roan Mountain everywhere I could, and the things that I said were positive and good. I didn't want to bring up a relative robbing a mail on a horse, you know, that type of thing, but did happen. And I didn't want to put those things in a book. And so I was really held back by my thoughts about how the people in Roan Mountain, I wanted the people in Roan Mountain to respect me and my family much more than I did them wanting to know I was somewhat famous or that kind of thing. That wasn't a problem. I just wanted to say, well, the Smith family are pretty good people, you know, that type of thing. And it was always on my mind. Still today, I tell those things a little bit more freely today than I couple of years ago because all the people are gone. My brother said he's better than me anyhow. He didn't want to hear how good I was.
I think I speak for Matt and the rest of the Auburn fan base. Please write a book. We would love to read it. Like just from doing the research, I've been blown away with so many stories just from looking up your name on the internet and finding these super specific, interesting stories about bootlegging, about the plane on fire, about how your wife helped recruit Charles Barkley, all this stuff. I would eat up a book like that.
Well, I would love to do it, but if it hadn't been for that, I was afraid I'd make somebody mad, or I think a family member would think you shouldn't have said that, Sonny. I didn't look at it from a standpoint of how good it would be or how much money it could make. I've always, you go out to try to make something of yourself, but more than anything, I was the kind of guy, I want Roman Mountain people to think good of me because I don't know what I should say. I didn't think they thought well of my father or my grandfather. And I wanted the Smith name to be looked on as something a little better than just ordinary or less. Do you know what does that make any sense?
Yeah, I respect that a lot. I think that's a cool perspective to have. I have one basketball question I wanted to go to, and then I'm done. I promise. I don't know if Jackson's done.
No, I'm all right.
Okay, he's all right, Matt.
Well, this is my last one for real. You mentioned you go to practice a lot. You're lucky enough to kind of see Bruce as a practice coach.
Yeah.
I think it was clear in the preseason even that he knew this team had a really high ceiling, and he was going to set the expectation extremely high of what he wanted them to do, how he wanted them to play. Other than taking care of the ball, which I assume is a focus after the other night, is there one or two aspects he's really harping on to try to get the most out of them as SEC play kicks up here?
If somebody asked me what was one of his strongest points other than his talking to, communication with the players, I would say he's the best at spacing. You all know the word spacing. What he does, everybody says you need to have spacing to play today, so you can dribble into the lane, so you can move the ball around from quickly and get shots before they can get out to you. Well, what he does, he's the first coach I've ever seen that could run into spacing. In other words, when a guy makes a cut from one side of the floor, usually they'll drift to under the basket, wait there for a rebound. They will run to spacing on the other side of the floor. So they keep the floor spread all the time. So anybody that can dribble a lick for him can get into the lane and get a shot. So the thing that amazed me about him more than anything, early in his practice, is he wants everybody to take a shot. If you think you've got a shot, take it. And they got some, I wouldn't let it shoot unless it's a shotgun. But he wants them all to shoot.
Yeah.
And what that does, that builds confidence in those guys. Yeah. Because in the game, as farther he goes into a season, the guys that need to be shooting the ball shoot it.
Yeah.
He's really good at that. And somebody said if you had to judge Bruce Pearl on a game, was he a better game coach or practice coach? I'd say he's a better practice coach because I see that all the time. And you can't tell what's going to happen in a game because the other coach is involved. And he may be a great game coach. And I think he is. But I just watch his practice and say, I don't believe I've seen anybody else does it as good as he does.
Yeah, he believes that he builds that confidence, like you said. And I've had a lot of conversations with friends of mine. Sometimes the offense can feel a little helter-skelter. It can feel a little some bad shots. I know Charles has even said that on TV. They take some bad shots, but I've watched Bruce Pearl since early Tennessee days. They've always taken some bad shots, but that's part of his strategy. He wants everybody to be ready to shoot.
I used to say the same things, but he builds confidence. He builds confidence in the third string center. He'll tell him to take a shot, and he can throw it in the ocean, but he can dunk it. I can't remember his name. Here I am doing a game. But anyway, he builds confidence in everybody. Yeah. Look what he's done with the lower Leor Berman.
Yep.
Who was a guy, he just kept pumping him up. Shoot the ball, shoot the ball. All of a sudden, he's come a valuable guy off the bench. And he's done that with a lot of different people. He's got a great coaching staff that works for him. And they really, if you watch them closely, they really believe in him.
I'll get
they
one
really
more in
believe
here.
in him. Huh?
You settled one argument of me and Matt's. We had an argument if Cambridge dunks or Wendell Green threes were bigger. What are your thoughts on heat check timeouts when you're away and the crowd's going nuts and the team's gone on a run? What do you think about taking timeouts? Bruce doesn't seem to like to do it. How do you feel about it?
I feel the same way. You get on a roll, you hate to take the momentum is a big part of the games, and you don't ever want to kill the momentum. I thought about that myself in timeouts. Is this a bad time for momentum to call this timeout? And I think he's really a good momentum guy, and I think that's the way it should be. But you got to use those timeouts anymore because people are living by the 3-point shot. They can turn a big lead into nothing in just 3 or 4 threes, just like that. So you have to do timeouts a little bit different than you used to because a 3-point shot is so big a part of the game.
So
you don't throw. You used to throw it inside first. Now you shoot it outside and throw it in second.
So what I'm hearing is if you're away and the other team starts hitting 2 or 3 threes in a row and your team looks a little frazzled, you take a timeout because Bruce seems to let it roll and see his team kind of end up bringing it back without a timeout.
Yes, and I don't know which one is the best in today's game. I think the way they play with freedom, and you got to say his team plays with freedom. They really do. I think it's best to let it flow. I think the way he's doing it right now would be better than I used to think that the coach controlled the game. Now the coach lets the players control the game, and he keeps them from going totally crazy. There's times when it looks like we're not doing anything. There's nothing organized out there. But did you ever see out of a timeout us not do something good? Do you ever see on a dead ball situation out of bounds that we don't run something good? It's there's a lot of coaching done in a game by Bruce that I think he doesn't get credit for.
He's always had a reputation as one, and you just see it night in and night out. The way they defend out of bounds plays, whether it's under the basket or out, the pressure they put on, or offensively, getting guys really good looks at. You're right, out of a timeout, it always works. And I think
really?
he has this great sense of his guys. Like he's just so connected to them. And I think it is a lot easier to not call timeouts when you have great talent and you trust them that they're gonna make some plays and bail you out in a way. So many teams this year have had to call their timeouts because of the pressure we're putting on, and Auburn's able to save those 3 timeouts for the last minute.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, the game has changed so much now that I don't think the coach controls the game as much as he used to, because three counts more than 2. You know what I mean? Years ago we lived with the 2. Now you live with the 3 and take a 2 if you have to. And I still think that the best coaches are the guys that design their offense to get the rebound. You know what I mean? I think people that get a lot of second shots are more successful coaches than the people that live on one shot. And if you're rebounding the ball, you got a chance of being a winner. I always thought it's the most important thing in the game is rebounding.
That's my key. That's my key for this group is I think they're going to win turnovers most nights. I think they're going to shoot pretty well. But if they win the rebounding battle in the SEC on a night in, night out basis, I think they're going to be really hard to beat.
Sure. Well, the thing about it, you don't commit as many fouls rebounding the ball as you do double teaming, trapping, and trying to steal. And so the way the officials used to call, as opposed to today, you had to kind of play some way that didn't let the officials affect the game. Now, they don't affect the game as much as they used to. They really don't. And I don't know why. I think they're a better. I think the commissioners of the people that control the officials are doing a better job now than they ever have. And guys, they get the best officials to call in the best leagues. And I think that's one good thing they do. I don't know how we got off on officials. I'll be criticizing here in a minute.
We love it. We love it. Well, Coach, it's been an honor to have you on. This has been amazing for us. Is there any last things you want to tell the Auburn fan base about your career, about Auburn, about Rowan Mountain?
No, I've been fortunate to be involved in some really good things, and I've been fortunate to coach in some really good places. And Auburn would have to be right up at the top for me of places that I've been. Where I live, not so much from a coaching standpoint. I loved Virginia Tech when I was there, you know, but I always said, well, you know, Auburn's a lot like Virginia Tech. And so I would say in all my places that we moved to, that Auburn would be my favorite. Virginia Tech would probably be second.
Well, War Eagle Coach, and thanks for coming on.
War Eagle. Thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed this. You guys asked good questions. I don't know if I answered them enough. Thank you very much.